Hi everybody, welcome back to my art for today. Hope you're all doing well. I am doing this in my kitchen and I am using a different stand for the camera and it's might jiggle a little bit, so bear with me. It's just easier to make this craft in the kitchen. So we are going to make salt dough today, and salt dough is very easy to make and it makes really great ornaments. So it's kind of like a clay, and it's a clay that you have to cook. It's not as fun to play with like Play-Doh is. I would make a different recipe for Play-Doh, homemade Play-Doh, but it's still something you can play with and you don't necessarily have to cook. Now the salt dough we're going to make today, we're going to need a spoon. We're going to need a 1 cup measuring cup, a 3/4 of a cup, and a 1/2 a cup measuring cup. These are the measuring cups I use. You're going to need a bowl to mix it in. You're going to need some water. You're going to need flour and some regular table salt. Okay, so we're going to get started. Our recipe calls for, actually this is half a recipe. I want to use a whole recipe. So this one calls for 4 cups of flour, 1 cup of salt, and 1.5 cups of water. That's what that means, 1.5 or 1.5 cups of water. So that's why we need some different measuring cups. So the first thing I've got is my bowl, and I've got my flour. So I'll try to get them both to fit on. I'm going to take my 1 cup measuring cup, and it says it needs 4 cups, so that means 4 of these. So I want to level it as best I can and fill it as best I can. You could use a knife to level it off. So 1 cup. And your hands are going to get a bit mucky. 2 cups. Three cups. And 4 cups. So that's quite a lot of flour. It should make quite a lot of dough. So baking, this is kind of a form of baking, although you cannot eat these. As much as you would like to, and as much as you think they might taste good, and they might even smell good when they cook, they taste gross because it's so much salt. But baking is a great thing to do. It's math, it's science, and it's art. And you know how I like to combine all those things. So I did 4 cups of flour, and now I need 1 cup of table salt. I'm just filling that in. I'm using the same measuring cup. Filling, filling, filling. There we go, pretty even. And I'm going to pour it into my flour. From there, I'm just going to use my spoon to stir it up. There we go. From there, I need 1.5 cups of water. So for me, that's 1 cup, so I use 1 of these, and 1/2 cup. I use 1 of those. So I'm going to fill those. Tight to as close to the top as you can. And then I'm going to swirl it into my bowl. I'm going to take my 1/2 cup. And swirl it in. From here, I'm going to take my spoon. So we're not going to get our hands in there quite yet. We don't have to. You can. I always loved having my hands dirty. I always loved crafts. And my nickname, plastic, or paper, or what is that, wax paper, as a kid was Miss Muck. So my parents called me because I was always mucking around with stuff like this. And I was someone who didn't mind having her hands dirty or gluey or painty. So it's getting a little bit harder to stir. So that is when I would, and you can see that's quite wet on there, take the extra off there. And I probably should have taken off my wedding ring, but oh well, it'll survive it. And then you just kind of get your hands in there. It's kind of like baking a pie crust, but it doesn't taste anything like a pie crust. So you're squishing it until it starts to form a ball. And so down there is some loose flour, so you kind of have to lift it up. I actually might add just a tad of water, and this is when you might have to work with your mom or dad or your older sibling, or even just yourself, to figure out how much water you need, because you don't want it gooey sticky. You want it to be a nice piece of dough that will hold its shape, but that's not too mushy. And I try to stay as close to what the recipe calls for as possible. But I am going to add a touch more water. This is something I used to make when I was a kid, all by myself all the time. Now, something you could have done if you weren't going to cook with it, or even if you were, is you could have added some food coloring to the water, and then your Play-Doh would have had a color to it. But we're going to be baking things and then painting them, so I didn't want any color in mine. This is quite a big dough. So you really want to squish it together. I put the wax paper on there. I'm not sure if I love it or not. It might be more of a pain to me than not, because it's moving around a lot. Yeah. There we go. So now you just want to knead it. And kneading means pushing and pulling, making sure that flour is mixed with the salt and is mixed with the dough. And you want the dough to start to look quite smooth. See, there's some cracks there, but this part is quite smooth. That way it'll be smooth on any kind of creation that you make. Cookie cutters are great for playing with this kind of salt dough, but weirdly, I don't have any. We're not big cookie makers, I guess. I have no cookie cutters, so anything I make is going to be freehand. There's your lump of dough. Now, it's quite large, and if you have somebody in your house you want to work with, you can divide it in half, and they could have half, and you could have half, which is what I'm going to do for now, just to work with it. So what I'm going to make, and you can make anything, quite honestly, but what I'm going to make is I'm going to cut that dough in half, maybe in 3/4. You could use rolling pins. I'm going to flatten it out. Oh, it's a little big for what I want to make. What I'm going to be doing is we're going to be making a hand print. And hand print, parents really like, because it's like a memento of who you were on the day that you made the hand print. I'm just going around to see if I can find my rolling pin. That's why it helps being in the kitchen. Now you want to try to roll whatever it is you're creating or kind of evenly, so that when you cook it, it cooks evenly. And I want this one to be nice and circular, because I'm going to be making my daughter's hand print. Another reason you might put the wax paper under it is to help you lift it. Gemma! I'm going to use my daughter's hand because mine, as you can see, is too big. She knew she needed to kind of listen for my call. Can you put your hand on it, Jem, and see if you can? Oh, it's a little bit too small even for your hand, so push it out a little bit more. Nice and round. Go ahead, love. And so we're gonna push each finger, is tickling, so that when she lifts her hand, you want it to come out so that you can see. Does it hurt? No. No. Okay, good. Okay, lift. There's her handprint. So cool. I love it. Thanks, Gemma. Yep. So what we're going to do next is if we want to hang this, you need to put a hole in it. Now I'm actually going to hang mine lopsided, but I'm taking just the end of the paintbrush and I'm putting it there. So when this cooks, it'll cook, the hole will stay open and you can put a string through it. Mine's going to hang a little bit tilted, mostly because I don't have any dough, not much dough up here where her fingers were. So next, I am going to get a pan. This is a baking pan. I am going to spray it a little bit. If you have parchment paper, that's a good thing to put on. Unfortunately, I ran out of parchment paper, so let's see what happens here. Yes, so this is when it's easier if you do it on wax paper or parchment, but that's okay. Then we're going to just put it on the paper, or on the pan. I'm going to make one more thing, so we've got room for maybe one more creation. So got your dough. As your dough sits out, it will dry a little bit, so it's always good to put it in a bag even while you're working, or you can add some water to it if it gets too dry. So like everything I do, I'm learning. So my videos are not perfect because I'm kind of learning as I go as well. And it is better, I realized as I did that one, to work on a piece of wax paper. It will help you get your creation over to the pan a little bit easier. So this one, I'm going to roll out. And then I'm actually going to, because I don't have cookie cutters, I'm just going to use my hands to create my shape. Can you tell what it is? I'm making a lot of hearts lately. I'm going to get a knife to help me cut in a bit. That little indentation of the heart. And then I'm going to just roll it and smooth it out. Same over here. Cut a little bit off. And same over here. And you just experiment. Like, this might not work out first time. If it doesn't work out, you just squish it all together and you start over. So this is quite thick. So the thicker your ornament, the longer it will take to cook. So while you're working on this, you should heat your oven up to about 275 degrees, 275. So you want a very low heat, and you want to cook your ornaments for a long time. So it's just going to kind of sit in there, and it basically just dries it out. There's my heart. Now it's not perfect, but I like it. Again, I'm going to put a hole in it so that I can put a string in it later. You could also put a metal paper clip in it. That's what I often do. I'm going to peel it off, and I'm going to stick it beside Gemma's handprint. So now I'm going to put these in the oven at 275 degrees. You will need an adult to help you with this. So this isn't me saying you get to cook by yourselves at home, boys and girls. This is something that you need to have your parents or somebody that's in charge of the kitchen to help you with. So 275 degrees for about 2 hours, and you have to just keep checking. It should start to get hard if when you touch it, or your parents touch it gently, and it's still spongy. That means you need to cook it a little longer. One of them may cook quicker than the others, and that's okay. You can always take this one off and then put it to dry to cool, and then cook this one a little bit longer. Okay, so we're going to go cook them, and once they're done, I will bring them back out in a new video, and then I will just show you how to paint them. All right, thanks for watching. See you later, alligators.